Welcome to Meat's Woodshop. And making this really fancy clipboard for your dead bird eye protection. Let's drill some holes. Join me in making this awesome beer mug. So I'm actually really happy with this. I think it looks really nice. My dovetails. I did not think that I was going to be making a technic. Hey, I'm Caleb with Means Woodshop, and today I've got a very easy project for you. Pallet coasters. Pallet coasters are really easy to make, they're really fun to make, and you can really just kind of go wild doing whatever you want to do with them. Let's see how to make them. Alright, so what I've got here are some little pallet coasters that I made a while back. I'm a little hesitant to do so because it seems like there are quite a bit of pallet coaster videos out there already, but a different take on it might do you some good. You could kind of use whatever scrap wood you have laying around. I've kind of picked out a whole assortment of different wood. There's no sound logic behind this at all, or no reason, but feels right in my head. I feel like a good owner's set is like 6 and a good gift set is 4. I don't know where I came up with that. I ended up with just 5 for my set, and I made my dad a set too, and I calculated the amount of pieces I would need to make 4, and I made that many pieces, and I ended up with 5. I'm going to make 2, an extra one for my set and an extra one for my dad's set, and I'll take you along for the ride and show you how I make them. So let's go to the table saw. When you're making pallet coasters, I think the best thing to start off with would be the runners. The runners being these. To make 2 coasters, I'm going to need 6, but instead I'm going to make 7 because some pallets have 4 runners, 2 close together in the middle and then the ones on the outside. So I'm just going to try something different that I haven't done. And I have this one left over from a previous set that I did. And this is where having a feather board comes in handy because I could push that up to the blade and lock it down. And it gives me that thickness to my blade. I want to use some of this scrap maple for runners too because I think that'll look cool. It's too thin. What instead I'm going to do is I'm going to use the width of the scrap runner to get the size that I need. Now the piece I had left over from my last set is just a little over 4 inches. I want the other ones to be that size. You could very easily use the table saw with a stop block to make those cuts, but I actually want to use the scroll saw. So I want to talk to you a second about the grooves that are cut into a pallet. Sometimes they side load them. A lot of pallets have these notches cut out on the runners so a forklift can pick it up from the side of the pallet. And while I do that, I'm going to show you the easiest way I've come up with to do that, which is to just use the belt sander. Steve Ramsey has a method where he hot glued these to a bigger board that he could hold on to and ran it through his router, and I made some like that, and it gives you a more realistic look. It's actually the closest thing I've seen that matches the notches in a real pallet. I didn't have very much luck with it. The hot glue kept coming loose on me and they'd go flying off on the router and it was scary. So I stick to my method of using the belt sander. If you don't have a belt sander or a router, and I can't tell you how many pallets I've seen like this that just have just straight board runners with no notches cut in them. I just take each runner and press it up against this rounded end of the belt sander and grind a notch in it. Yeah, and with that, that's really the most sanding that you will do on this project. We're going to focus on cutting the strips that will make up the tops. And these I'm going to cut even thinner than what I used for the runners. If you have a planer, you could take your whole board and just plane it down to the thinness that you want and use the top of the board to cut your slats. I don't have a planer, so what I do is I find the thinnest pieces of wood that I have laying around. This is going to be the top of the pallet. It's almost the same exact thing. Just use my feather board and I could start ripping a whole bunch of thin pieces to make up the tops and bottoms of the pallet. Cut a lot of thin strips here, as you could see, but most of the time you need as much as you could get. I make my pallet coasters, remember we were a little bit over 4 inches long, and I make them 3.5 inches wide. I'll make a mark at 3.5 inches. I'll cut all these at the scroll saw too. So these are all of my pieces that came from the sides of rough boards, and so most of these are what I want to use for the tops of the pallets. And these two are 5 pieces and are going on the bottoms. So with this laid out, what I do is I get a framing square and I take one of my runners and I put it to where it would just about be down in this corner, but on the framing square itself. So I could take those bottom pieces and just sort of line them up where they need to be. So I think this is the funnest part, and that's figuring out what boards you're gonna put your top. And just put a damn weight on it. I'm just gonna take these and all the edges that are sticking way off the runners, I'm gonna sand them down flush to the runners using the belt sander. And with those sanded down to their final sizes, I could spray on this poly coating finish. You know, that's it for the pallet coasters. I mean, that's some pretty easy stuff. Yeah, that's a pretty nifty project. Now, wasn't that entertaining and informative, making these easy, breezy, beautiful pallet coasters? I hope you decide to make some of these. They're really fun. Like I said, there's quite a few other pallet coaster videos on YouTube right now from other fellas, and they all have good methods for making theirs, some easier than others. I hope mine was clear and to the point, and I hope you enjoyed the process of making them. If you did enjoy this video, then why don't you like it, huh? And also, why don't you subscribe to the channel, maybe? Because I post new project videos every week. Also, if you hit the little notification bell too, you'll get notified every time I upload a new project video, and that is important. Thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you next week.